Welcome to Trends on Thursdays, where I'll tell you about the trends I discussed with my clients this week. This week, I'll talk about podcasts, California, physicians, and video. First up, good news if you've jumped on the podcast train. More than half of Americans have listened to a podcast like ever, and over 30% have done so in the last 30 days. Podcast listeners are also a little more affluent, a little more educated, and a little more diverse than average. Podcasts are getting so popular, in fact, that NPR, yes, the radio people, is projected to make more money off of podcasting than radio and events put together next year. Podcasting as a growth engine. What makes podcasts so interesting is that I can listen to them while doing something else. Walk the dog, do the dishes, run the treadmill, drive, even though 49% of podcast listening is done in the home and 22% is done in the car. Podcasting is super portable and convenient, and it's personal, seeing you're in my ear, which is pretty personal space the entire time. So what if you haven't started your podcast? Well, I strongly encourage you. It's still not too late, especially if you have something to offer. It may not be starting to bring in ad revenues just yet, but when it comes down to business, the payoff isn't always in dollars and cents. It may be in eyeballs or eardrums. In other words, attention. Top podcast categories, by the way, are comedy, educational, news, and sports. Next up, have you heard of CCPA? The California Consumer Protection Act will require companies to be more transparent when it comes down to handling data. Of course, once you put it in legalese, it's not nearly as easy anymore. The California AG's office just released 24 pages worth of guidance to point us in the right direction. The estimated compliance price tag for California businesses is about $55 billion, by the way. And the big question for everyone else is, of course, are you off the hook if you're not in the Golden State? Well, if you have customers in California, arguably not. As you may remember from the GDPR, the European General Data Protection Regulation, you have to think through what happens when someone from elsewhere finds you on the web and gives you data to handle. When I say give you data to handle, that could be just the fact that they were there, a tracking cookie, for example. If your business has a website, start planning now. Might be time to update a few things sooner rather than finding yourself in trouble. Next, the power of the internet in our quickly changing world is even changing the way doctors get their information. According to the 2019 pharma physicians report, physicians are seeing fewer sales reps than ever, and they're turning to the internet for information. The number of doctors that are not seeing any sales rep at all has gone from 24 to 39%. And only about a little over half of physicians polled have met with pharmaceutical salesperson this year. The biggest problem is, of course, time. Doctors, like all of us, get busier, and they have to pick and choose what they spend their time on, and some things they're forced to spend time on, like paperwork and electronic health records. The next big disruption will happen, or is happening already, where doctors and pharmaceutical companies communicate. The question will be what part of what the reps bring to the table is most valuable and what parts are fluff. How do you communicate with your customers most efficiently and on their terms? Probably an interesting question no matter what line of business you're in. One more, Google search results are ever changing. And I've talked about the visibility of podcasts and SERP pages a few weeks ago. None of that, of course, gets close to YouTube. By 2020, video traffic is expected to take up 82% of internet traffic, according to Cisco, but then almost half of connections and devices will be video capable. YouTube accounts for anywhere between 97 and 99% of all video search results in Google, and of course they are a Google product after all. In order to take advantage of all of this potential search traffic, in other words, in order to be found, you have to, of course, make sure that your videos are actually tagged, subtitled, and named in a meaningful manner. So in order to do your SEO with video, you have to do SEO on your video. I promise it makes sense. And for now, Horizontal video is still king, even though it doesn't seem logical because who wants to turn their phone sideways? Platforms that are native vertical like Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok might steal a little bit of YouTube's thunder eventually, and it will be totally worth it seeing they get 25 billion visits a month with an average of 21 minutes per visit. My 14-year-old, by the way, brings that up by probably 5 minutes since she spends hours on YouTube. Anyways, if you just capture a little bit of that, you're good. And vertical or horizontal, I think it's time to start making some videos, make them findable, and start publishing. Anyways, that's it for this week's Trends on Thursdays. Of course, I will be back on Monday. Until then, if you will, share this video with a friend that might be interested. And I am Tobias Wilhelm.